You're listening to the No Gray Areas podcast with Patrick McCullough. We welcome back Joseph N. Gagliano, author and creator of No Gray Areas. Joe provides advice on having an entrepreneurial mindset. Let's dive in.
Joe, welcome back to the No Gray Areas podcast, which is actually named after your book and the movie that we're making about your life story. And we're actually, let's before we even jump into the podcast about this entrepreneurial mindset, what we're going to talk about, we got to give a little update to the listeners on the movie, right? So
sure,
it's exciting. Are we just, the script writers is jumping into the third rewrite?
Yeah, that's pretty much been getting some really good reviews so far. We've had it out to a lot of professional screenwriters, or reviewers, I should say. And it's coming along nicely. We're starting pre-production. We're starting casting.
Yeah.
And ideally, we're looking at starting to shoot third quarter this year.
Oh, I'm really excited. I know I've told you this several times, but every time I read the script, and I've now read it 4 times, I get more excited about it. I mean, there's obviously some changes and some things that they're going to do to make it better, but it's a fascinating story. Cautionary tale, as we've talked about before, a story about, this idea of restoration, redemption. It's a beautiful story. So I can't wait to see it on the big screen.
Beautiful is something I haven't heard before. It was a painful journey. I can tell you that much. It's an intriguing story. A cautionary tale is something I really embrace and I like to say, because I think with my pain that I've gone through, if we could help answer some questions or fill in some gaps for this, our youth today, that's a cool thing to do. Yep. And that's really the purpose behind what we're doing here when we're making this film. It's not visions of grandeur, having a film about your life or something. It's the purpose behind who we're doing it for and why we're doing it. And the partnership with Ambassadors of Compassion is a great cause.
Trying to reach 1 million students with this. And like you said, if you could help some young people not make the mistakes that you made when you were 22, 23, 24, mistakes that in some ways you're still paying for today. That's really your heart. And I love that you have that heart to share that. And Steven Headache Smith, who was part of it as well, him being part of that. So, well, let's jump into what we're going to talk about on this podcast today, the entrepreneurial mindset. And you're perfect for this, because I've always been fascinated by entrepreneurship. And I think a lot of my life actually worked with it in the social sector. How do you solve issues?
Okay.
You're clearly from the business perspective on that, but the more I've gotten to know you, the more I realize you are when God created you, He created you with that entrepreneur mindset, that spirit. I first learned that about you. My very first trip I took with you, I was just asking you questions about your life, and you do you remember this? You started telling me about one of your first jobs, Baskin Robbins. And you got fired from it because you was it the wrestling team?
Yeah. I was on the wrestling team in high school, and the owner let me close the store that night. Yeah. It was, January or February in Chicago, and I had some teammates from the wrestling team come in, and sure enough, the owner was in this car in the parking lot watching.
So he's watching the whole thing.
Yeah, and I gave away some free ice cream to my friends. Thinking I was, trying to be cool. I don't know if I was just trying to be their friend or whatever it was. I just didn't ring up a couple of them. And he fired me on the spot.
Yeah.
Fired me on the spot. And it was a great lesson in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
It's a lesson of integrity, first and foremost. But it was also a lesson that, hey, I want to own that ice cream next time. I want to own it. I don't want to have someone tell me what I can do and what I can give away. I want to own that. I want to be the owner of that store. So that was something that I figured out at an early age.
Well, and in most of our listeners are listening. They're not watching, but if they were watching, they could see a huge smile on my face as you were telling that story, because that's where I started getting inside of Joe Gagliano's head.
Oh, God help me.
I know it's messy in there, but it's fascinating in there because, again, I don't think everyone would think of it that way. But that's where that entrepreneurial mindset came in, is where it's like, hey, you know what? If I want to give away ice cream, I want to own the ice cream, and then I get to decide if I want to give it away or not.
Sure.
That's a little bit of the entrepreneurial mindset. So I looked up the definition of entrepreneur, and one of the first definitions I saw was a person who organizes and runs a business. A little lame, because I think there's a lot of people that run a business.
I don't agree with that. That could be a HR director in a company. It could be a manager of some type of industrial shop. He's basically running the business, but he has no risk.
Yes. That's why I like the next one. A person who takes on greater than normal risks.
Sure.
That's where we're starting to get into an entrepreneur, right?
You're correct.
Like you didn't have a lot of risk when you were just running the ice cream shop for that manager.
No.
You had some risk when you started giving it away for free. But the risk would be if you actually said, I'm going to own this ice cream.
Yeah. For me, the true definition of an entrepreneur is the guy that's going to jump off a cliff and figure out how to build an airplane on the way down. You're just going to figure it out. If you have a vision, you're going to figure it out.
Yes.
And you're going to put your head on the chopping block. Me, unfortunately, and my wife will tell you this, and my kids will tell you this, and people in my circle will tell you this, I'm a glutton for punishment. I'm the type of knucklehead that'll jam that round peg into the square hole.
Yeah.
Because I believe that peg was meant for that hole. Now, the good thing about an entrepreneur and taking on that type of risk is you only have to be right one time. And if you're right one time, it'll pay the dividends.
Yeah, for sure. Well, your life has been this way. I mean, from the time, again, you were in like high school when you started figuring that out a little bit, and you've jumped off a lot of cliffs and tried to figure out how to build a plane on the way down, right? Like that's been consistently part of your life. But as two, I would say we're two men of faith. The reason that I love this topic is because in the very first chapter of the Bible, we see where it says, in fact, the very first verse, it says, in the beginning, God created. He's the ultimate entrepreneur. He created. And then a couple of verses later, we see where we were created in his image. So I think when people are living out that entrepreneur spirit, they're really living out the fingerprints of God in us as creators and inventors. So
that makes sense.
I mean, I love that about you, that I see that in you. So here's what I want to do. It's going to be a little different today.
Okay.
I just have a list of quotes about entrepreneurship. I'm going to read one of them, and then I want you just to give dialogue on it. Might be one statement, might be a little bit longer. So here's the first one.
Let's see how this goes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So reject the tyranny of the picked. Pick yourself.
I'm going to bet on myself 8 days a week. 8 days a week. No one's going to control my destiny.
Yep. Here's another one. The ship you are waiting to come in may very well be the ship you need to build.
Once again, it gets back to controlling your destiny. I mean, I'm going to wait for that ship that's going to be on time, may not be on time, maybe oversold, maybe overbooked. But if I build the ship myself, I'm going to take it whenever the heck I want to take it.
Yep. Here's another one. Excellence isn't about working extra hard to do what you're told. It's about taking the initiative to do work you decide is worth doing.
Okay. It's working smarter, not harder.
Yeah.
Hey, the working class, man, I've got a ton of mad respect for them.
Yeah.
I could not do what they do. I would fail miserably. But I looked on the flip side of that, they could not do what I do.
Yep.
Like, I will work smarter than the physical person will work harder. And I don't know if that makes sense. It's certainly not meant to be condescending at all, because what they do, I know I can't do. But on the flip side, what I do, I know they probably can't do. So hopefully that makes sense.
Can we throw a story in there on here, this that would work perfect for it?
Which one?
Remember when you told me the story about when you owned those car washes and that was really backed up that day?
Gosh,
Remember? Yeah, tell that story, because that fits perfectly with what you're saying.
Yeah, so I was really blessed. I had a great ride. We used to own all the Chamois Man car washes in town. Peak of operations, we had 13, 14 sites at 600 plus employees. And I officed at the store on Hayden and Thomas in Scottsdale. I built that store, and I had a second floor office up there. And the Saturday before Mother's Day, which Saturdays were usually, the holy grail in the business. You better be washing cars on a Saturday or a Sunday. And it had rained on the Friday, which makes it even more glorious, right? Because cars are dirty. And then the Saturday before Mother's Day happened to be Cinco de Mayo. So, predominantly a Mexican crew, which I got mad love for the Mexican people. They are as loyal as can be. Yeah. If they're with you, they're with you.
Yeah.
I'm up in the office and I'm watching the cameras and I don't know what I was working up there, doing some stuff. And all of a sudden I see cars like lined up around the block on Thomas Road right there. So I go down there and I talk to my lead guy, this kid Alfonso, one of the first guys I ever hired, and he was down there, and they were just so shorthanded. Nobody showed up for Cinco de Mayo, right? So I said, okay, I'm going to help.
Yeah.
What a horrific idea that was. And so I said, okay, I'm not going to really do anything hard. I'm just going to drive cars off the conveyor belt to the front of the line and take the towels out of the washing machine and bring them to the front of the line. Well, I'll tell you what, Pat, I probably lasted 10, maybe 12 cars. And I was like dripping sweat. It's May 5th, right? And I'm looking at this stuff. And I finally walk up to Alfonso. I said, hey, let's just close. Let's just close for the day. He said, Mr. Joe, we got this. Go up in your office again.
He knew where you belonged.
He knew exactly where my place was. And that gets back to what I can do up in the office was different than what these guys can do down there. And I've got crazy respect for the working guys.
It's not the one is right or wrong. It's just
it's just how you're wired. It's how God wired us to be.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Okay, here's another one. Here's another quote about entrepreneurship. It's not about having a map. Sometimes it's about drawing a map.
Yeah, it's Pat, if it was easy, everyone would be doing it. If there was a roadmap to success that all you had to do was follow the blueprints, I mean, everyone would obtain success.
Yeah.
It's just not. It's not.
So an entrepreneur says, I'm going to go figure out how to draw the map.
Figure it out. And along the way, you're going to get kicked in the gut several dozen times. You're going to feel the depths of the rejection several dozen times. But as I said earlier, you only have to be right one time.
Yeah. Which goes back to you may draw the wrong map once, twice, three, four, five, 6 times. You're going to.
No, yeah, you're definitely going to. You know, what I like to say is, especially for the younger kids that are out there that have visions of being an entrepreneur, you're going to pay a lot of stupid tax along the way, a massive amount of stupid tax. But if you could build people around you that have paid those debts already, had paid that stupid tax, have navigated different waters as to what's good and what's bad, and hey, don't go down that road because there's a whole bunch of bumps down that road. And it's going to cause you a heck of a lot more pain. Go this way instead. You know, that's where we get around our circle. Who's our circle? Who are we looking up to? Who's guiding us?
Yeah.
That's what's important.
You know, that's interesting, that last point. We won't go down this road because we'll get off topic here. But the last few guests we've had on our podcasts have talked about this idea of making sure that you know who's in your circle. So it's interesting you're touching on something we're talking about.
And you know what, Pat, I'll be 54 here in 60 days, I think it is, hopefully. I know you just welcomed the 50 club.
I'm in the 50 club with you.
Congrats.
Now. Yeah.
I was talking to my wife, Tracy, about this a couple of days ago, actually, because I was talking to someone who is in my circle, who I really care for. And on a personal level, he's got a heart of gold. And a friendship level, I know I can count on him 8 days a week. But sometimes he doesn't really get where, and a lot of people don't. And I finally, at the ripe old age of almost 54, I had this epiphany. And I said to Tracy, I said, you know what? I'm finally coming to realize that most people don't really understand what the heck I'm saying. She goes, you're just learning that now?
Yeah.
It's like, I see it so clearly in my mind. It's like you and I talk about playing checkers or playing chess.
Yeah.
I'm constantly thinking down the road and playing chess where maybe some other people don't have that skill set, and they're thinking about, hey, what do I want to have for breakfast tomorrow morning? I'm not even like there at all. I'm thinking, what's going to happen 3-4 steps down the road after breakfast? So.
Well, and Joe, that brings up a great point. I think that's another piece of an entrepreneur mind, is that you are always playing chess. You're thinking 4 or 5 moves down. And again, it's not right or wrong, but there's a lot of people that are task oriented and they're thinking about the next thing I need to do, and they get a lot of work done.
Yeah, but you know what, Pat? I also think it's a curse. Honestly, like, you know, even last night, here it is, 11 o'clock. I probably got 2 hours sleep last night. My mind never stops.
Yes.
And it's a curse. You know, I walk into a restaurant I could be with my wife and my kids and my in-laws, people I really care about. I could be with my friends, and we're going to have a nice dinner. We're going to have a couple bottles of wine. We're going to just be together, right? I can't sit there and enjoy the dinner. I got to think about, well, how many employees are in this place? What's their average per plate? How many hours they open? God, what's their rent per square foot in this 5,000 square foot establishment? And I start breaking down business models in my mind. No matter if it's in a restaurant, no matter if
by the end of dinner, you franchised that out, haven't you?
Yeah, I said, how can we do this bigger, better, and better?
Yeah.
And that's a flaw that I have. I'm breaking down models all the time to try to understand revenue versus expenses. You know, where are they doing here? Where are they suffering? Where can they improve? And why can't I just go have dinner with my family and friends?
You know, almost every entrepreneur I've met says the same thing, though. They're like, I can't turn my brain off. I can't turn my brain. I can't turn it off. So I've heard that must be another consistency with entrepreneurs.
It's a curse.
It's a curse. Here's another one. People who make a difference never wait for just the right time. They know that it will never arrive. The right time will never arrive.
It's never going to come. You know, just like when young couples get married, they say, well, we want to have a family, but we have to wait for this. We have to wait for this. We have to get, you know, we want 2.5 kids. We want a white picket fence around the house. It's never going to happen. Well, if I only had $50,000 in the bank, then we can go ahead and have kids. Okay, here's a newsflash. You get that $50,000 into the bank, then you're going to move the goalposts to say, I got to have $100,000 in the bank. Or you know, we're really blessed to live in this 2,000 square foot home, but gosh, I can't bring a kid into this world with a 2,000 square foot home. I need a 3,000 square foot home. It's never going to be the right time. The goalpost is always going to move. So yeah, hopefully.
So the entrepreneur says, I'm, like you said, to use the analogy you used earlier, I'm jumping off the cliff and I'm going to figure out how to build this as we go.
Dude, I'm ripping the Band-Aid off. I'm going in. I'll take the body punches along the way because I'm a glutton for punishment.
Yeah. Okay, how about this one? I like this. This dates us, but it's a movie we both saw. Mickey is saying this to Rocky, and he says, the worst thing happened that could happen to a fighter, you got civilized. Now, I put that in my entrepreneur folder because I think that's sometimes how entrepreneurs work, is they're uncivilized.
You really dug deep for this stuff, didn't you?
Did.
Wow, you're going back to the 70s with Rocky here, right?
Yes.
Wow. That's you know what I think of when you say that, Pat? I think of success should not change a person. Jay-Z said more money, more problems. Yeah, that's probably true. But success should not change a person. How you get success defines the person that you were to get success. If you've done it with honor and integrity and everything else, and I'm going to preface it that way. But just because you obtain success doesn't mean you should change. You know, and the biggest thing, I know I've said this to you before, but I'll make sure I could say it here on tape as well. But it aligns perfectly with disciplines in life. Disciplines in life, no matter what you're doing on a business level, whether it's business disciplines, whether it's trading disciplines, whether it's gambling disciplines, whatever it may be. So I liken it to if you're a blackjack player and you go to Vegas and you have success playing blackjack and you're a consistent player where you play $100 a hand and you have disciplines that you're following, whereas if that dealer turns over a face card or a 10 and you've got a 6, you're going to hit it because you know overwhelming odds are that dealer is going to have a 20 and you're going to have a 16 and it's a loser. So when you're playing a $100 hand and you always hit a 6, and what happens when that same person who has success playing $100 a hand now jumps to the $1,000 table? And now all of a sudden the money starts dictating that person's success or that person's disciplines. So when that same person he's got a $1,000 bet out there and that 6 comes and now all of a sudden he's scared or she's scared and second guessing whether or not she or he should hit that hand. My response to that is you've got no reason to even be playing the game. If the money is going to dictate how you play the game or change your disciplines, you have no reason to play the game. So it's just what Mickey said to Rocky in that movie. Yeah. You went and got civilized.
Yeah.
You got civilized. You changed because the money changed Rocky.
Yep.
But when Rocky got humbled, when Uncle Paulie or his brother-in-law Paulie or whoever it was lost everything in the last one, when Rocky got humbled, he got back to who he was.
Yep. Yeah, Rocky IV, where he goes and he starts training like he did in the first one.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go back from the 70s. We're going to go back even further.
Oh, gosh.
Here's another quote. Sooner or later, Orville and Wilbur Wright had to jump in the plane and fly it. You can't keep things in the incubator forever.
Man, you can keep going back to the drawing board. You get to these tech guys that are just always incubating new tech, and the market will always tell you what's going on. So if you got a concept, you got a thought, bring it to market. The market will always speak what's going on. Whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, you'll know pretty quickly. As long as you could protect the rights and make sure it's not going to get stolen or pilfered from you and everything else. But there's no reason to keep things in the box all day long. Just bring it out to market. Let the market tell you what you're going to do with it.
That's good. Here's another one. If you always fit in, you are probably expendable.
Dude, these are great. It's what's going to make you stand out? I mean, you're going to work for a corporate America, and a corporate America there's hundreds of thousands of kids coming out of college that are all in that same demographic, that same group, the same look. They're going to wear their fresh tie to the interview. They're going to wear their new suit to the interview. They're going to put their best foot forward, but there's nothing that's going to differentiate them. Oh, do you want to be in the masses? Some people do, and that's great. I can't even get my mind around that.
Yeah, I know you can't. I know that. Okay, you're going to love this one. This is a quote by Alexander Graham Bell, and the reason you're going to love it is because I hear you give a similar quote often. Bell said this, when one door closes, another door opens, but we often look so long and so regretfully upon the closed door that we don't see the ones which opened for us.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, you have a window quote you use.
Yeah. I always say, God closes the door but opens up a window.
Yep.
You just got to find the flipping window.
Yep.
He's never going to leave you alone. He's always going to be there. I know he's always been there for my life, even with all these crazy pitfalls that I've gone through. But you just got to find the window.
Yeah. And that's an entrepreneur mindset.
Without a doubt.
Which I think, again, some people are wired as entrepreneurs, some aren't. But I think there's things that we can learn from entrepreneurs that we all need to do. And that would be one of them, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Something else I like to say all the time, Pat, it's never on our time, but it's always on time. We can take these body blows. We can get kicked in the gut. Things may not go the way we planned, but God's up there looking down at us saying, he's laughing at our plan. Our plan is meaningless. He's got the plan. We're just a steward while we're on this earth for maybe we get a few blessings, maybe we don't get blessings, whatever it is. But our plan is meaningless. You know that as well as I do.
Well, since we're making a movie right now, let me quote from a movie. This is a quote from Moneyball. The first one through the wall always gets bloody. Always.
Well, it's certainly not easy to pave your own path. You know that as well as I do. Yeah. Just because everyone's doing something doesn't necessarily make it right. So sometimes you got to zig instead of zagging.
And it's painful sometimes. Yeah. Here's one by Henry Ford. You can't build a reputation on what you are going to do.
But you could lose a reputation pretty darn quickly. I'll tell you that much. And I'm the poster child for that. That's for sure. I mean, as much good as I think my heart tells me to do in this world, as much good as I think I may have done in this world, I'm always the convicted felon that did, because I didn't have the moral compass dialed in at the young age of 23 years old to say no to something. So as much as he said, about building a reputation, I flipped a script on that immediately that, hey, you could lose it right away. You could lose it faster than it took you to build it.
Yeah. And I think you bring up a great point, especially for anybody, but especially with entrepreneurs. If you're not careful and you're not grounding that entrepreneur mindset in integrity and honesty and those type of things, those character qualities, you can get yourself in a mess real quick.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, this one touches on something you've already mentioned, another quote. When it comes to entrepreneurship, the concept of zero failures is worse than useless. It's counterproductive.
You're gonna fail. There's no doubt about it. I mean, there's a few of those unique situations where people went out there and stepped in gold from day one. But that's more than likely not going to happen.
Yeah. That's again, this goes way beyond entrepreneurship, but isn't that a truth that we need to try to get our young people to understand? Is they're coming up in life, they're starting to think about their futures, whatever, that it's not if you fail, it's when.
It's when. And that's the beauty of the entrepreneurial mindset at a young age, where you get these kids that graduate college or they don't graduate college, they try to go into the workforce right out of high school, and they're just laser focused on, I got to get a good job. I got my resume doing this, and that's fine. But the rub that I have with that is that what they have on their side versus what someone like me, or not so much you because you're younger,
Barely.
yeah, barely is right. We don't have the time on our side to make a mistake.
No, I
When we
get
were
what you're saying.
18, 20, like when I talk to your son Kyle all
Yes.
the time, I say, Kyle, don't be afraid to make a mistake. Because what's the worst thing that can happen? You fail, but you got so much time to figure it out.
Start
because
over.
it's the quasi definition of insanity. If you fail, but yet you've learned something, if you could take away a nugget or two and learned and not duplicate that same mistake again, you will your chances of obtaining success are greater. And you know what? Maybe you don't have success at the age of 21. Maybe you get kicked in the gut a few times, but maybe you get kicked in the gut again on your second entrepreneurial venture at 25. But now you're a little wiser at 27. And you know what? You failed 3 times in a row, but gosh, your 4th time at the age of 30, you got some good background behind you. You've got the right people around you. You've got some great experiences that you've learned from in the past. And your chances of success are greater at that point because they had time on their side. Yeah. If all of a sudden you or I go out and try to become an entrepreneur at the age of 50 because I'm going to leave my corporate job that I've had for 20 years that's paying me every Friday, and I feel warm and fuzzy with it, and now I'm going to try to go take my nest egg that I've made for 20 years working for corporate America to try to go open up a business, and he fails at the age of 55 or 56.
Yeah.
He's in trouble.
A little harder.
That
to
person's
start
in trouble.
Yeah.
He's hoping for Social Security to kick in pretty soon.
Yeah. Well, and that brings up a great point that the less runway you have in front of you, the less you're probably going to be willing to risk.
No, without a doubt.
Yeah. I think you'll resonate with this one. Entrepreneurs are always restless.
No, 100%. My mind doesn't stop. And I truly believe I personify an entrepreneur because
you do.
Every different nuance is, I don't want to say a 30,000 foot guy, but I'm probably a 10,000 foot guy where I've learned to trust in a lot of people around me that are detail guys. That, I get a 50-page contract with me. I've got so much trust in some attorneys that just read it. Make sure these bullet points are in there, but just read it because I don't want to read it. Yeah. But
always restless.
Always restless.
Two more, and these are so Joe. You could almost say Joe Gagliano and then have this quote underneath it.
Oh boy!
Either you're in or you're in the way.
Oh gosh. Dude, you're either with me or you're not.
Yeah.
It's. But I will say, at the age of 53, I'm a lot more patient, which you've seen me go ballistic, right? So if I'm saying I'm patient now, just imagine how impatient I was earlier. So I've matured a lot, Pat, which doesn't really say much.
Though. No, that's good.
Because I don't have tolerance. Tolerance is probably a bad word, but I don't have patience if I think someone's on my team, but then they're not committed.
Yeah.
You're either in or you're out.
Yeah. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs that are listening would go, yeah, that's so true. Like, we're going, we can do this, we can take this hill. Are you with me or are you in, or if you're not, get off
but
the bus.
The thing of it is there's certainly not an entrepreneur out there that can claim 100% success for what they accomplished. Even if it was a guy that had a gizmo or a gadget or some type of intellectual property that he created himself, he still had to rely on the trademark attorneys, the patent attorneys, the attorneys in some capacity, the accountants. It's a collective team effort, no matter what it is. So if that team is not all in with you, if that team's questioning you or questioning your vision or questioning your moral compass, it may be, I don't want them on my team. And I don't think too many people that are, I don't think anyone that's successful is going to want someone that's not committed.
That's true. Yeah, if someone went and read the book about Steve Jobs or watched the movies about Steve Jobs, one of the extreme entrepreneurs, they would find exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
It wasn't just him.
Yeah.
There was a team. It was a group of them.
Yeah, and he was ruthless. He didn't.
Oh, yeah.
He didn't tolerate much of anything.
Yeah, you talk about either you're in the way or either you're in or in the way.
Yeah.
That would be him.
Without a doubt.
And he matured some over his time as well. But all right, last one. We've all been told to not bite off more than we can chew, but wouldn't you rather choke on greatness than nibble on mediocrity?
I think about security, and I think about security in the false sense of security, I should say. So tying in what we talked about with entrepreneurialism and being an entrepreneur and a sense of security. It's a false sense of security. So you go out and get a job. You go out and get a job, and you get a paycheck every Friday. And you feel this warm sense of security that, man, I just had to wake up at 8 o'clock. I had to be at the office at 9. I had to punch my clock out at 5. I had to go home Monday through Friday. And I got that check on the end of Friday. I got that check every Friday. And that's great. That's what makes this country what it is. And this country's flipping amazing. Mm-hmm. The hardworking people that make this country go. But it's a false sense of security because the people that own that business, now granted, there's going to be a relational stuff there. There's going to be people that are vital to the company. But if that ownership wanted to downsize, or their business wasn't pertinent anymore or valuable anymore, or they hit some type of skids, what a lot of these companies did during COVID, or somebody wanted to buy them, what do you have left?
Yep.
So it's a false sense of security because you're getting a paycheck every Friday or twice a month, whatever it may be, rather than the entrepreneurial mindset that's going to control your own destiny.
Yeah.
You're going to sink and swim on your own fruition. It's like owning a house instead of renting a house. Okay? That landlord can't wake up one day and say, gosh, I'm going to get my tenant out of there because my niece needs a place to live in Arizona. And then what are you stuck with? If you're renting that house, you're stuck with trying to find a new place or battle some landlord in court, and good luck on that.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing where, if you're working for a company and you enjoy what that company's doing, why not try to do it yourself?
Yeah.
And I don't know, Pat, it's a lot of people may not agree with that. It's just, I don't agree with someone else that doesn't agree with it.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I'm smiling. Again, those that are watching see me smile really big when you said that, because you're like, why not go do it yourself? That's the entrepreneurial mindset. And again, this has been a school, like maybe 30 minutes or whatever we've been on here. All the listeners just got 30 minutes schooling in entrepreneurship, and it's great. But again, it's part of the fingerprints of God on how He made you. Again, the Bible starts with, in the beginning, God created. He created you in His image, and you as an entrepreneur are a creator and inventor. And it's one of the things I love about you, Joe. So thanks for sharing some of those ideas and thoughts with us. I know we all learned something. Thanks, Joe.
You got it.
Thanks for listening to the No Gray Areas podcast. To dive deeper into the story, be sure to subscribe, follow us on social media, and check out nograyAreas.com.